Hello and welcome to the second in our series of Offshore 101. These will be hosted ongoing by Stephen Atcheler from Shore in the Philippines, and we gave you a wonderful introduction to what the series is going to be about last week in our first show. He joins me once again. Stephen, hello and welcome once again.
Hi Kevin, 2 shows, 2 jackets. We're on fire.
Well, I've got the same one on, I don't know about you, but hey mate, let's dig a little bit deeper, because last week in this show we talked about some of the questions you need to ask yourself about whether you're going to offshore some of the tasks in your operation. But I wanted to dig a little bit deeper today and just ask the question I'm quite often asked about: what can you offshore, Stephen?
Yeah, okay, cool. So we'll dive into that. The simplest way, I try not to confuse anyone about it. Anything done on the computer can be outsourced, but it's all going to come down to your ability with your training and how you can implement these things. So anything can be, but it's not what can they do, it's what you can get them to do that will make the difference. So today though, we're going to talk about how to get started, not overcomplicate the whole thing, just an easy way to set aside some tasks, work out whether there's something you want to move and why you would even move them offshore in the first place.
Just help me with that for a moment, Stephen, if you could. How do we go about identifying those tasks?
Yeah, so we want to keep it fairly simple. So anything that's done over the computer really can be outsourced. However, you've got to look at your ability to be able to train those things. So starting at the low-hanging fruit or some of the lower value tasks, and the way you'll work this out is to look around the office and see if one of your property managers is performing tasks well below her pay scale and it's taking her time that she can't get out there and do the productive tasks. And if you want to move those tasks to someone else, the business can't afford to hire someone locally to take on those tasks. So these are things that you'd want to identify straight away. And then we can start to grade them on how easy or hard the task is. And you'd want to start with the easier task that takes the most amount of time. So simply, you can buy some time back. That's how I would suggest looking at it.
Yeah, and I think too, the other point that I wanted to make my own practical experience is that you're never going to be able to outsource everything you want right at the start. So you should look at what you can outsource now, and then as your team grows, as their skills grow, what would you like to outsource to them in the future? And I think it's in 2 levels, Stephen.
Oh, 100%. It's like in anything, if you're riding a BMX, and you start to do jumps, you're not going to go for the biggest jump first. You're going to start on a little one, and then as you get better and more confident, you start to move to the next thing. So it's no different to anything else. Start small, get your confidence, work through it. Once you've got it in your head, look, you know what, this is the way it's working for us. Our staff's understanding it and it's all moving forward. Well, great. Then we take it to the next level and the next level. And if you're like me, eventually, like what happened in my office is I hit too high a level and I've gone, you know what, bring it back a little bit, and that was that perfect zone, I think.
Okay, well, let's get down to tin tacks here. You've got an example of how we can start with this, and we're going to provide a download for you as well at the end of this show, a spreadsheet that you can start to work on for yourself. But you've given us a bit of an example here. Stephen, walk us through this one. Yeah,
cool. So we're going to talk throughout the show about something that's going to be familiar to most real estate businesses, talking about things like lease renewals. So if we look at the lease renewal, so we'll pop that up there as a task and then break down the lease renewal of who can do what. So the lease renewal is something that needs to be scheduled weekly, that you go into the future and you look in advance at what leases are coming up, whether your process be 2 months or whether it be 3 months. And then there's a whole set of tasks inside of that. So we want to look at those tasks and work out which ones stay in-house and which ones go offshore. So initiating the lease renewal to tenant and to landlord. It's a simple piece of communication, easy to do, and then there's going to be a response or some sort of outcome that comes back from there, whether it's vacate, renew, or whatever. So that's how we're going to treat it. Is it easy? And yeah, if it's easy, can it be processed, templated? So yes, a lease renewal happens at the same time. You go into the future, there's a process around that because it's repetitive. The one thing, if we talk about a lease renewal, and we're going to talk about these tasks, a particular part of that is the negotiation of the price and the terms of the lease renewal. Now, that's not something a non-experienced real estate person can do, whether they be in-house or offshore. That's something that takes a little bit of time to get your head around property types, property styles, the current market. So that would stay in-house and we wouldn't move that across on our list. But then once the terms have been agreed to, that's a different ball game. There's some set terms, 12-month lease, increase of $10. That's something that can be created and executed by the VA quite simply. So that's how we're going to break it down. It's really as easy as picking a task, breaking that task down and putting it onto one side of the column. If it's easy and repetitive, goes to the VA. If it's more difficult, it stays in-house. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's a matter, isn't it? It's a matter of understanding the process, working where your outsourcing staff come in, where it comes back to your home staff and so on, and then moving it around. As I understand it, we're going to be producing some flow charts in the weeks to come as well that will demonstrate this. So what's the takeout for today? Do we just look at just one of these tasks and then look at what flows from that, Stephen?
Well, there's really tasks inside a task. So if we look at one particular process and we call it lease renewal, if you want to grab that and then just break down all the action items that are in there and start to make a list of which ones you think could be moved offshore and which ones you would say would stay in-house. And I think that's as far as you need to go. Now you have the whole task list. You've got an absolute process and you've got everything in between. And then next what we're going to do is put that into a workflow where we'll look at the start and we'll look at the end point. So there's going to be a full visual representation for the VA so that they can understand start, middle and end, which is going to help you train them for the future because they're going to have a far better understanding. So for today though, just make a column, get an Excel sheet. Like Kevin said, there's a download that we've made for you to make it easy and just start separating those tasks.
Okay, that's your task for this week. Get about it. Just that one process we'd like you to do. And then next week, Stephen Atcheler will take us through a process flow on how you can expand on that and make it work. Hey, Stephen, fantastic takeaway today, my friend. Thank you very much and look forward to catching up with you next week at the same time.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Kevin.